Spot silver, even with the correction that the contract has had over the last couple of days. As of last night, it was still over 68% above the 200-day moving average. 10% is a lot. What's 68%? These corrections don't really mean anything. And I'm going to show you this a little bit more too. I wanted to remind you that with silver, there is a finite amount in the physical world. In the contract world, there is an infinite amount. It's just about buying and selling it as a trade. But silver is not a trade. It is a fuse. That's why you see it so volatile. It's an indication of what's going on, but there is a finite amount of it with 36 different or more global users. The contrast between what's happened in Venezuela and what's happening in Iran is the spine of what I'm going to talk about. It's a tactical success that may carry strategic consequences far beyond its immediate aim. So I'm going to introduce what I'm concerned about today, but then I'm going to get into that in more detail next week because I really want to think about all of this. Will the seeming success in Venezuela's model, now executed in Iran, swift, decisive, and executed without any prior congressional approval? That's the piece, that last piece. You know, it's emboldened even more brazen future moves. That's my concern. And so what I'm seeing is a pattern that is evolving. And, you know, why is it so different? Well, the Strait of Hormuz isn't just any waterway. It's a critical choke point for global trade. If it stays closed, it could lead to severe economic disruptions and lots of inflation, which is why you see the markets doing what they're doing. And I'm going to get to what's happening in the gold and the spot gold and the spot silver markets, as well as the physical markets in a second. But quite honestly, rising prices and potentially even more military conflicts between countries that rely on the Straits of Hormuz and many other areas that are being disrupted right now. Those conflicts between countries, well, they rely on this route. And Iran is not just going after Israel and the U.S., as you might know, it's going to their neighbors as well. And that sets up for a much larger fight, potentially pulling a lot of countries, maybe the whole world. Maybe this is the conflict that brings us into officially World War III, which I'm going to get back to that in a minute too. But just keep in mind that, please, removing an abusive dictator, I am all for, because I want the public to have their power back. And of course, it can be morally understandable. Yay, he's gone. It's a relief to the suppressed and the abused public, but the process matters for legitimacy and risk, of which, quite honestly, there are a lot of layers. And here's the potential lesson. Precedence shapes expectations, and expectations shape behavior. In this article and I haven't had a chance to read the whole article yet, but rising anxiety. Many in Cuba wonder if the United States will attack their country next. Just saying. So, frankly, Iran's public reaction is not a surprise because they have vowed that Jerusalem, Washington will suffer the consequences for the killing of their leader. This growing conflict is beginning to involve more and more countries, and it threatens U.S. military bases. We've seen U.S. troops die as blasts shake Mideast, fear of wider war after Iran's response. The public is divided there. There's some that actually were enamored and supported the Ayatollah, and many that were oppressed by him. So you have sorrow and joy, fear and hope, and the rising threat of this broader war perhaps being the final trigger, making World War III fully visible. That makes for a future, quite honestly, for all of us that's cloudy to see, which is why it is so important to go back to basics. Gold and silver have been money for thousands of years, not through this conflict or that conflict, but through every single one of them, and they've made it through without the loss of purchasing power. So the retaliation, well, frankly, that's crystal clear, because war is one of the constants in currency regime shifts. And what you're looking at here, I just pulled this morning, so I have no annotations on it, but you're looking at where Iran has dropped bombs and where the U.S. and Israel have dropped bombs into Iran. Look, it justifies inflation. They can point a finger and go, well, it's not us doing this, even though that's what they are going to do, and that they do. It's the war and the absence of transparent collective decision-making that amplifies the perception that force, without going through required channels, it's viable. Do what you want and then ask for forgiveness later. It's a lower cost tool because it can happen just like that. And I mean, the question is, once things are done, can they be undone? Maybe, maybe not. It kind of depends. But what about that ongoing shift in global allegiances? Does this not solidify that? Because unlike the Venezuela case, the theater here touches critical global choke points and critical global leaders. Here is the UN saying, no, we don't go along with that. Now, this is one person in the UN, not the whole UN. But President Trump threatens Iran with a force never seen before. And while we were told that this is just going to be about a 4 or 5 week operation, President Trump foresees extended attack on Iran as U.S. adds troops and jets to the region. Is this going to be a constant war like we had in Afghanistan? I don't know. I just happen to have one of the Iranian rial currencies, that 10,000 rials that have absolutely zero value. I can't buy anything with this. And is that going to get worse for the people of Iran, whether they were abused or not abused? This is a huge deal and used to justify a lot of what's going on. Because Congress, well, what if they are actually forced to now grant this war? We just went through the strike down of the IEEPA, the EPA tariffs. Well, that kind of would give President Trump a much broader base for those tariffs. If Congress actually declares that we are in war, then a law that was put into place in 1917 that is still legal, that also can be put in place. And that gives the president much broader powers than he has right now, and that he's even taken so far. So it's kind of critical that we understand what's going on. And again, I wanted to pull the data as close to when I was coming on air as I possibly could. So this is the spot silver contract. And you can see when I ran the numbers, so this is as of yesterday's close, right? But even as of yesterday's close, we've spoken so much about the 200-day moving average.